Hello guys, my name is Shahirul bin Ramizan and this is the cost analysis in education. My matrix number is 971108136367001. Okay, let's begin the presentation. Objective of this presentation: cost analysis can contribute significantly to decision making, planning and monitoring in education. The different concepts of cost explain how they can contribute to improve policy decisions in education. The purpose of this review is to introduce you to different types of educational cost analysis and explain how they can contribute to improve policy decisions in education. Okay, classifications of costs of education, which is costs can be classified into two types: A, individual or private costs, or B, institutional or public or social costs. Individual costs or private costs. Individual costs or private costs of education are those costs of education incurred by a learner or by his or her parents/guardians or by the family as a whole. Individual costs are of two types, which is direct and indirect. Direct costs. These are those costs that are directly visible. They include all money expenditure incurred on different items by the student. Example of direct costs is expenditure on tuition fees, other fees and charges, purchase of books, stationeries, uniforms, hostel expenses and transport. Indirect costs, which is opportunity costs. Indirect costs are those costs which are not directly visible. These costs are sometimes called opportunity costs or foregone earnings. Opportunity costs refer to the value of students' time or earning foregone to continue the study. Institutional costs of education or public cost of education. Costs incurred at the institutional level, which is the government, private, and or mix, are called institutional costs or public costs of education. Public costs are those that include financing by the government on the basis of taxes, loans, or other public revenues. The institutional costs of education are generally analyzed using the following variables. The variables are variable and fixed costs of education, recurring and non-occurring costs of education, current and capital costs of education. As you can see, this is the cost of education. You can see the institutional costs, social costs, individual costs, or private costs. Types of costs: total costs, total fixed costs, and total variable costs. Current costs and capital costs. Opportunity costs and foregone earnings, social or total cost of education, unit costs of education. This is all the types of costs there is in education. So how do you know? How do you get the total value of costs for all the variables? This is the equation: TC equals TFC plus TVC. Okay, which is TC is the total cost. It's how do you this is how you count the total cost, which is total fixed costs plus the total variable costs. Total fixed costs and total variable costs. Fixed costs are defined as those that do not change with a change in the number of learners. Example: cost of on institutions building. In other words, the costs that do not increase or decrease with the change of level of activity of the institution are known as the fixed cost, which doesn't change. The cost stays the same. Variable costs, which is vary with every changes in number of learners. Example: cost of teachers, laboratory materials, stationery items. It depends on the quantity of teachers and all that. Sometimes we also use the term like short-run fixed cost or long-run fixed cost. For example, the cost of the building forms long-run fixed costs, and the cost of the teachers' salaries is referred to as short-run fixed costs. The fixed costs include the cost of the following items: A. Purchase and construction of land and buildings for the school. B. The purchase of furniture. C. The purchase of durable equipment, etc. D. Cost on other non-recurring items. Current costs and capital costs. Most of the time, the capital costs and the current costs are synonymously used with fixed costs and variable costs respectively. Current costs are incurred on consumable items with a given financial year. Capital costs refer to costs incurred on durable items like land, buildings, equipment, and so on that rendered useful service over a period of years. Opportunity cost of foregone earnings. The concept of opportunity cost emphasizes the factor of choice. Because the resources are scarce, we are forced to choose. If we choose to have more than one thing, we shall have to accept less of the other thing. That's a fact of life, actually. This type of cost plays a very important role in decision making. By the opportunity cost of decision is meant the sacrifice of alternatives required by that decision. If there are no sacrifice, there is no cost. Total social cost of education. The sum of individual costs and institutional costs is called the total social cost of education. Unit cost of education. Unit cost of education means cost per unit, example, per student, per graduate, per credit, etc. Generally, unit cost means the total of number of learners enrolled in a course in the particular year. Unit costs refer to the unit of output. For example, successful learner or graduate. This is called effective cost of education. Cost benefit and cost effectiveness analysis. Cost benefit analysis and cost effectiveness analysis can help us in evaluating an alternative use of resources. The estimation of a unit cost is necessary if one has to make a cost benefit and a cost effectiveness analysis. In a cost benefit analysis, the input is measured in monetary terms. In cost effectiveness analysis, the output is addressed in terms of the level of achievement of the objectives. Cost benefit analysis is also known as a rate of return analysis. We can define cost benefit as a tool which measures the economic terms, the benefits of education to the individual or to the society. In order to use this technique, it is necessary to measure both cost and benefit in economic and or financial terms. On the other hand, in cost effectiveness analysis, the output of education can be measured in terms of scores in cognitive achievement tests, examination results, etc. Purpose of using the cost analysis. First one is testing the feasibility of expansion plans, proposal and targets, projecting future levels of education costs, estimating the cost of alternative policies of education reforms and innovations, comparing the alternative ways to achieve the objectives, comparing the profitability of alternative investment projects, improving the efficiency of resources utilization. The use of cost analysis in education planning. This review has shown that there are not one but many types of cost analysis that are relevant and applicable to education. IIEP, Institute of Education Planning, undertook a research project in 1968 to examine the various ways of using cost analysis in both development and developing countries. The IIEP project concluded that cost analysis could serve a variety of purpose in education planning. That's all from me today. Thank you very much.